Good afternoon, everyone. If I could have your attention. We're going to call the meeting to order, and as we normally do, we'll first of all pledge the flag, and then we also would like to have a moment of silence immediately following the pledge. And in honor of Bonnie Trewick, a retired treasurer who served here for 34 years, we would like to extend that moment of silence for a little bit longer than normal. So would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Our meetings are public and part of public record, so this meeting is being recorded, both audio and visual, and will be posted on the county's YouTube channel in the near future, but please note that anything said here is part of public record. Since the last meeting, we have a majority of the board has been in the same room for a couple of meetings. Once on the 28th of November to meet with ABM regarding the proposal that we're going to be voting on today. It was informational only. I would not classify it as executive session. Further, on the 10th of December, we met with the Ruth Smith Center regarding a financial request. No decisions were made at that meeting. Besides that, we were at the Christmas party together, but also not an executive session. Did I miss anything, Commissioners? Very good. The only correspondence I thought was important to bring up for part of public record was that we did get an legal opinion from Attorney Tim Sennett from Knox McLaughlin regarding our ability to reallocate for lawful purposes any leftover funds from the bond debt. He confirmed that under Section 1784 of the County Code, we do have that authority. Is there any public comment at this time? Oh, excuse me, did I miss any correspondence? Very good. At this time, I would open up the floor for any public comment about items that are not on the agenda today. Those would include an agreement with the WCDA to be a pass-through, essentially, for a grant, repository bids, a premise use agreement with the Regional College of Warren County, and Warren County, reappointments to Redevelopment Authority, Planning Commission, and Zoning Hearing Board, as well as several resolutions pertaining to an agreement with ABM, P-CHIP, and the Redevelopment Task Force. So anything that is not under that category could be brought up now. We are going to acknowledge the dragons in just a moment. Anything else? Hearing none, are there any changes to the agenda?
No.
Do the minutes of November 28th and December 5th meet with your approval? They do.
They do.
Fiscal report?
You have the fiscal report in front of you. It's attached. General fund has just under $3 million available in it currently. Erie Bank stands the same at $200,000, and we will be, as I've mentioned before, no other significant developments other than the last bond payment we made at the end of the month.
Any questions for the fiscal director? Very good. We have two proclamations on the agenda today. Commissioner Morrison, would you please read the volleyball team proclamation, and Commissioner Eggleston, would you read the Christmas proclamation?
I'd be happy to do that.
And then immediately following the vote of reading the proclamations, we'll go ahead and ask you to come up and take a picture with you all. Go ahead.
Warren High Girls Volleyball Team Day. Whereas Warren County, Pennsylvania is filled with excitement and spirit because the Warren High School girls volleyball team has had an outstanding 2018 season, finishing second as the state runner-up in the PIAA Class 3A state championship. Whereas in addition, the Warren High School girls volleyball team has captured the District 10 championship title, becoming the first team to ever do so in the program's history. Whereas excellence and success in competitive sports can be achieved only through strenuous practice, teamwork, and dedicated coaching staff. It is important to recognize these young women who, by achieving outstanding success in athletic competition, have inspired and brought pride to Warren County. And whereas the recognition and celebration of our 2018 Warren High Girls Volleyball team served to bring our community together in honoring our students and their coaches for a phenomenal volleyball season, resulting in an outstanding record of 21-1 this season. And whereas these achievements could not have been reached without the leadership of the coaches and the encouragement of the players' parents, who together instilled in them the value of teamwork, imparted in them a desire for success, and helped them to develop a sense of fair play and competition. Now, therefore, we, the Warren County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim December 12, 2018, as Warren High School Girls Volleyball Team Day, and hereby extend our expression of pride to the team on their impressive record and the many successes you had in 2018. I further encourage all Warren County citizens to acknowledge the achievements made by the Warren High Girls Volleyball team and to thank them for representing Warren County as well as the highest ideals of the high school volleyball program. This team has truly exemplified the Be Legendary team motto, and we congratulate you on a truly legendary season. Adopted this 12th day, December 2018.
Thank you. Commissioner comments?
I'd just like to say thank you for so valiantly representing the county and the state. I think you did a marvelous job. You have a lot to be proud of, and it's something I know that you'll remember for the rest of your life. So cherish it, and thank you for all the work that you did. You represented us well.
I don't know what more I could possibly add to that proclamation. It really sums it up quite nicely. But we are very proud of you, young women, and I think you set an example for all young girls who are looking up to you as role models. And I appreciate that. And good luck to you in your future endeavors, and I hope that you're just as successful in life as you are in your volleyball.
For my part, I was just very pleased. I don't have much to add to that, except I was very pleased to join you all the night before your big day. I'm so grateful that it lined up perfectly, and you allowed me to come watch you for an hour or so. It was a great experience, and I was very pleased to be there. Any public comment? Absolutely. We'll read one more proclamation, then vote and get the picture.
Do you want to just do the picture?
No, I'd rather take the...
Okay.
do it all at once.
Christmas 2018. I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in clothes and lying in a manger. Luke 2:10-12. Whereas for 2,000 years, Christmas has proclaimed a message of hope, the patient hope of men and women across centuries who listened to the words of prophets and lived in joyful expectation. The hope of Mary, who welcomed God's plan with great faith, and the hope of wise men who set out on a long journey guided only by a slender promise traced in the stars. Christmas reminds us that the grandest purpose of God can be found in the humblest places. It gives us the hope that all the love and gifts that come to us in this life are the signs and symbols of an even greater love and gift that come on a holy night. Whereas the Christmas season fills our hearts with gratitude for the many blessings in our lives, with those blessings comes a responsibility to reach out to others. Many of our fellow Americans still suffer from the effects of illness or poverty. Others fight cruel addictions, cope with division in their families, or grieve the loss of a loved one. Christmas time reminds each of us that we have a duty to love our neighbor just as we would like to be loved ourselves. By volunteering our time and talents where they are needed most, we help heal the sick, comfort those who suffer, and bring hope to those who despair. Whereas each year Christmas brings together families, friends, and communities to rejoice in the birth of Jesus Christ and celebrate the wonderful gifts God has bestowed upon us, we also keep in our thoughts and prayers the men and women of our armed forces, especially those far from home, separated from family and friends by the call of duty. These courageous Americans are fighting the enemies of freedom and protecting our country from danger. By bringing liberty to the oppressed, our troops are defending the freedom and security of us all. They and their families are making many sacrifices for our nation, and all Americans are deeply grateful. Adopted this 12th day of December 2018, celebrating Christmas.
Thank you. Any comments?
I love Christmas.
Thank you, Commissioner Eggleston, for bringing that proclamation, and Commissioner Morrison for bringing the volleyball proclamation. At this time, I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda, the minutes from November 28th and December 5th. The fiscal report is presented and the two proclamations is read.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Let's take a picture.
Let's do this.
We were thinking of lining up about half of you up here and half on the next stage.
I do have a proclamation for each one of you. Maybe it'd be better to not hold it while we're taking a picture, but you can each take one of these as well as the coaches on your way past, okay?
Yeah, I think half up there, half up here.
Since your mother ever well, a lot of girls, yeah.
I think I need to go in there. Hey, Mom.
You guys need to, yeah.
Well, it's going to be hard to... I was thinking we could take half and choose on the other side.
That looks like a lot better on that side. We need to fit like a couple.
No, we need to somehow squeeze them in.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you're good.
We need to take a couple here and squeeze in.
Sorry, they're on the pink line. Yeah, come in a little bit on the end. Maybe. Yeah, there you go.
All right, everyone, thank you. Don't forget your proclamation.
Hey, we're not, I'm kind of mad. They're going. Oh, I can't. That was rude and uncalled for.
You're free to leave. If you wish to stay, feel free. But I know you probably have school and work to get back to, so. Thank you for coming. Merry Christmas to all of you.
We have a really great presentation on blighted property if you guys want to stay. It'll be fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, you
Uh-oh.
How many more do I need?
2?
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get those to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Pam will take your name.
Oh, Julia. So we need just one?
2.
Oh, we're good. Awesome. Wait, okay. Extras? Oh, okay. I thought you were giving yours. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
cleared out. We kept half the courtroom. Balance. Right.
All right, thank you all for your patience and support. The next item on the agenda is the Cooperative Agreement between the WCDA and Warren County. I would call upon Mr. Decker in order to present the gist of this agreement.
Yes, good afternoon, thank you. Sent a letter on November 27th asking for the County Commissioner's consideration of entering into a host municipality agreement. This agreement stems from our award of a $500,000 Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program grant from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to continue our redevelopment of 300 2nd Avenue, the old PNC Bank building. Prefacing that, I'm pleased to announce that phase 1 of that project, which has completed the 5th floor and made space available for the Northern Pennsylvania Regional College, is completed on time and on budget. That also received Redevelopment Assistance Capital Project Program funding, as well as significant funding from the county commissioners as well as other philanthropic agencies. So good news there, they did move into those offices on December 3rd. Talking to Joe Nairn yesterday, they continue to expand their enrollment, their staffing. So we're looking at good things, and we're talking to them about taking additional space within the building to satisfy their staffing needs that they are projecting into 2019 and 2020. So huge positive across the board. The college curriculums are beginning to expand, as is their direct staffing. The background on the request, this host municipality agreement, is a requirement of the RACP program that a award that goes to any entity other than a taxing body receive the support of a taxing body, the host community, that provides the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania a fallout, a bailout program, if you will, should there be any expenses paid and reimbursed to the WCDA for the project that are ineligible, or found to be ineligible at the time of audit. The chances of that are highly unlikely, quite frankly. The structure the RACP requires, we have all of our contracts are reviewed by a consultant engineer. They walk through every step of the project with us, making sure that our contracts are correct, and also visits throughout the course of that activity to make sure that we're doing what we said we were doing. They review all of our billing, invoicing to the Office of the Budget, and these are all reimbursement type programs. So it goes through several phases of review before any reimbursements are made. And as stated in the cooperation agreement, should something come through, there is a chance that the Commonwealth would come back on the county to reimburse those if WCDA was unable to make those payments. We do include in the agreement our pledge to reimburse the county for any such expenses if that were to happen. So this is a requirement, again, the agreement itself is a requirement of the state, and we're asking for your consideration to continue to partner with us in this very vital and impactful redevelopment project.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Decker from the board?
I just have a couple comments.
Okay. Please go ahead.
I'm doing now.
Well, or you could move to approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement between the WCDA and the county in support of the $500,000 grant.
I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the host municipality agreement before us today. Comments?
Okay, so first thing, I'd like to take a moment to thank Jim Decker and the WCDA for what I consider an unbelievable job. Their time frame in order to get this project done was almost nothing. And the fact that they got it done on time and on budget is just beyond my comprehension, to be frank. This $500,000, obviously, you had a hand in writing the grant, and now you're following up and doing all the reporting on it. We're going to lump this $500,000 on top of the other, $1.5, $2 million that have been brought into the county as a part of this project. And the fact that they're in the offices and that everything. When we started talking about this, I thought there was no way this was going to happen. I'll just put it that way. I thought there was no way you'd get it done on time, not because of you, just because of the project. The fact that you've gotten it done on time, brought all this additional funding in from the state to the county, I think deserves an enormous amount of gratitude on our part, and the community's part, because this project is a huge one, and it's going to have a long-term impact on the community. And so I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for that work again, and say, spectacular job. So thank you.
Commissioner Morrison?
I have nothing to add.
I can't add to that. That was a fantastic accolade and well-deserved. I think that the risk for this is insignificant given your excellent history of reporting things appropriately. And since we're on the board and provide oversight, I'm not concerned about that either. And again, there's that clause about reimbursement. So I think it's great, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you. If there's nothing further, is there any public comment? Mr. Scully.
I'd like to thank Mr. Decker and the WCCBI for the project he does, because I don't know if a lot of residents of Warren County realize that in the volunteer fire service, the individuals got to travel quite a few miles to qualify as a fireman, and this now will give them the opportunity to do it locally, and not as a large expense. So yes, I compliment the WCCBI for what they have done, and the individuals that are dealing with the college, and it's just a good movement for the county and the volunteer fire departments throughout the county of Warren. Thank you.
Very good. Any other public comment? The motion before us is to adopt the host municipality agreement before us. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Decker. Next on the agenda is 2 repository tax bids. Mr. Gilbert.
Yes, you have 2 in front of you there. One for in the city of Warren. It's a property owned by Stephen Kate. Bidder name is Andrew Clark. That's for $1,500. And then the other one is for Tidiute Borough, 3 Economy Street. That bid is $100 for that.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Gilbert? The request before us is to approve the 2 repository sales, Tango Delta 2751417 in Tidiute Borough at 3 Economy Street, owned by Twyla Williams. $100 bid by the RDA, and Whiskey November 5768693 in the city of Warren at 104 Water Street, currently owned by Stephen Haight, bid for $1,500 by Andrew Clark. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any any comment from the board? Any
No.
public questions or comments? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Next is a premise use agreement between the NPRC and Warren County. I believe that is Mr. Rose.
What this agreement is our classroom in the public safety building in Youngsville House Complex. They propose they would like to use the classroom for emergency medical training. Same thing that we've done for years. They are becoming a training institute for the Department of Health. They're in the process of doing that right now. At quite a sizable investment to them, from them. They will be starting out with emergency medical responder and EMT, and eventually they do have plans to move to the medic platform as well. So this agreement is for the use of the premises. They still agree to scheduling and everything that entails for anybody else that needs to use it. It's at no cost to them, no cost to them.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Rose? I hear a motion to approve the premise use agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Commissioner Eggleston, Commissioner Morrison?
I have nothing to add.
For my part, I'm glad to see that the county is still supporting emergency medical services in some way, although we have not been as active in terms of having an active department that handled this as we did in 20 or some years ago. I think that this is an even better alternative, and I'm glad that we're stepping up and doing our part to help facilitate EMS training in some way. Thank you very much for bringing this, Mr. Rose. Any public comment? The motion is to approve the premise use agreement before us. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next, reappointments. Mr. Glotz from Planning and Zoning sent us a letter asking that we reappoint Pam Matvey for a 5-year term on the Warren County Redevelopment Authority. This term would begin January 1st, 2019 and expire on December 31st, 2023. They're also asking for reappointment of Jeff Certainty to a 4-year term on the Warren County Planning Commission. This term would begin January 1st, 2019 and expire on December 31st, 2022. And third, he's asking for a reappointment of David Miller to a 5-year term in the Warren County Zoning Hearing Board. This is a 4-year term that would begin on January 1st, 2019 and expire on December 31st, 2023. Any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve these 3 individuals?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Public comment? All those in favor of the 3 appointments, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on the written agenda is ABM, but due to the fact that we would like to use the technology downstairs, what we're going to do now is have Commissioner Eggleston present his redevelopment task force report, and then we will recess downstairs in order to get the TV lined up for the presentation with ABM. And that'll also get us out of here in time for the courts to go into their hearings. So at this time, I'll turn it over for a special presentation to Commissioner Eggleston. It's still warm.
What's that?
It's still warm.
Yep. Still warm, hot off the press. So basically what we're going to be doing today is going over the findings of the redevelopment task force. You guys want a copy? There you go. Basically I'll be pitching these around. So I'm going to try to run through this as quick as I can. I'm just going to go over the highlights. I don't know if you guys want. So basically, a little over a year ago, started working on the marketing task force, and at the same time began working on the Blighted Property Review Committee. The Blight Property Review Committee is the first step in the blight process, and so as part of that, I became aware of the challenges with the blight process in the county. I was originally going to do a committee that just focused on blight and the blight review process in the county, and actually started doing, as part of that conversation, realized that there were more issues with property in the county, and that probably it would benefit the county to have a more comprehensive task force. So we ended up initiating it as a task force through a resolution with 5 focus areas. And so basically today I'm just going to run through those really quick. Everything's in the report. The report ended up being, I thought it was going to be shorter, but it's 75 pages. Have fun with that. So it's blighted property is one focus area, tax claim is the second, commercial property redevelopment, public housing, permitting, zoning, and code enforcement. Those are the 5 areas, all of which are very important to how we deal with blight and redevelopment within the community. First, I'll just list the people that were involved in it. We have a few of them here today, or a couple of them here today. Jim left. Jim was a part of it. We also have Reverend Matthew from Trinity, who's also, what board are you on? I can't even remember. You're on so many things.
On EOC board.
EOC board, that's right. And then Terry Williams, who's from the Code Enforcement Department in the city. She was also a member of the group. Paul Pascuzzi, who is a Clarendon Borough Councilman. He's also on the Blight Review Committee. Andrea Stapleford. Phil Gilbert, who's here, City Councilman and also Tax Claim Bureau Director. Dan Glotz, John Shreve, Julie French, who represented the Board of Realtors. Bob Rabel, who also represented EOC. And then we had a number of people who were also just kind of volunteers as a part of it. So what I'm going to do is run through the findings really quick. This is a pretty comprehensive report, and it has a lot of really good recommendations in it. Most of them come from researching what other communities are doing to address redevelopment. It's important to understand that Warren County's population has declined some 7,000 people over the past 30 years, which is a pretty huge decline. That decline is continuing. I don't know if anybody here has looked at the population projections over the next 20 years, but to use the term dire would be pretty accurate, I think. We need to shore up what we're doing here. We need to shore up our businesses. We need to grow businesses. We need to recruit new workers. We need to do whatever we can in order to kind of stave off the loss of young people who are moving to the cities, and then also take care of the folks that we have here who are lifelong residents. So if you go through this report, there are a lot of very bold suggestions or recommendations, and there's a reason for that, because the group really didn't want to pull any punches, wanted to be as honest as they could be, and put together a report that we feel, if enacted, that will make immediate changes in the way that we handle things property-wise within the county. So the first item, and the one that is probably the most extensive in the report, is blight related. When you have some 7,000 people leave the community, when you have, and we statistically also, I believe, have the oldest population per capita in the state, or it's first, second, or third, somewhere in there. So when those two things happen, basically what you have is a number of vacant houses, a number of properties that are not being kept up, and it's not all in one place. It's patchy, it's all over the place. But there are blighted properties. These are properties that are in decline, the amount of money that it would require in order to fix them up is pretty extensive, so, and there's very limited resources. So this is probably the biggest problem that we have, and the one that we probably focus the most on, or one of the ones that we focus a lot on as part of it. The recommendations with this section basically revolve around a couple of things. One is a comprehensive blight plan. This is similar to what the city of Erie has done over the past 5 or 6 years to a lot of success, which is basically on a community by community basis, evaluate the quality of the housing stock and come up with strategies to best address blight in a strategic way. They realized that they had a pool of money. They had lost some 35,000 people over whatever it was, 20 years, and so they had an enormous amount of blight in their community. If they took all the money that they had to address blight and just started knocking houses down, they would just scratch the surface of the problem. They realized that. So as a part of their effort to address it in the city of Erie was to be strategic in where they would address blight. So you'd create corridors of redevelopment, corridors of opportunity, and then you would use your money as judiciously as possible in order to attack those areas and do serious redevelopment through a planned strategy. And that's kind of outlined. It also encompasses a lot of other solutions related to addressing blight. The second piece of it was documenting and educating and promoting the blight process to the community. There's a lot of people that I don't know if they really understand the blight process. There's a lot of elected officials who don't understand the blight process. We don't have, basically what we have in Warren County is a handful of municipalities that are very proactive when it comes to addressing this issue. And so they're the ones that get the bulk of the funds and the bulk of the resources because they're going after it. That doesn't mean that they necessarily have the greatest need. There are communities that have a great need for blight and they aren't addressing it, and we need to help them address it. Third item is a land bank. This is something that's been done in a handful of counties in our region, including Venango County, Erie, and then there are a lot of different municipalities that engage in land banks. Most of them are larger than we are, but certainly there's ones our size that have a land bank. Basically, a land bank is a tool of the county government that allows them to kind of work around legally, and it's legally authorized through the state in order to purchase property, essentially leapfrog the tax claim process, be proactive in getting a hold of properties and then redeveloping them, and then lining up people, both public and private, in order to take over properties and situations like that. A good example of how they might address something, like especially as it relates to commercial property, is I'd ask any general warden, how many properties are you aware of where a business goes out, they fail, the property is vacated, then it sits there, then a speculator comes in and buys it for nothing, and then sits on it for 20 years, and then when we decide we want to do something with it, they jack the price up or make it almost impossible to do something with it. Happens a lot. With a land bank, the county would have a tool where they could identify properties that could be redeveloped, that have an opportunity to redevelop, and take control of them through that process. And a good example is Washington County. They had a property that was worth some $150,000, but it needed some real work. And there was a person or a business on the first floor. The top 2 floors were empty. They purchased the property through tax claim for $7,000 or $8,000, and we're going to redevelop it and resell it. And it turned out that the person on the first floor was interested in the property but couldn't get a hold of it. So they ended up paying roughly the price of what the price of the property was. That money went in the land bank, and they had an owner that they knew was interested in developing the property. So those are the types of things that a land bank can do. And then there's different funding streams that could be utilized for a land bank. Third item is a knockdown crew. One of the issues we have is the cost of demoing properties. In my opinion, it's probably too high. We've got to figure out ways in order to reduce the cost of knocking properties down and then make it a more efficient process, whether it's by hiring part-time people, having our own crews, working with the city. They have people for DPW that knock properties down, collaborating with them. Another item is a neighborhood initiative. This is done in Corey, PA, and others, where they have basically what's referred to as a community development corporation. But basically it allows people to volunteer, work with them to take over properties, fix them up, help people that need help with their properties and fix them up, and it's just a more organized way for the community to do that. We're at a point now where, again, our resources are limited, our labor is limited. We're going to need, if we're going to fix this problem, we're going to have to come together as a community in order to do it, and this is a more official way to do it. Fifth one is one that I think is probably one of the most important of the bunch, which is a comprehensive housing rehab initiative. One of the things that we've got to do as a community is basically prevent blight from happening by intervening earlier in the process. One of the challenges with the senior population that has a difficulty maintaining their own properties is they don't either have the money or they aren't physically capable of maintaining the property, and then it goes into decline over time. We've got to figure out ways to incentivize them and others in order to rehab those properties and help them out to keep them up to date. So a few of the things that are pitched are, there are a lot of different loan programs and also low interest loan programs, and then also grants through the state to do comprehensive rehabilitation. We've done some of those things. It's just, there's never been a real concerted effort. It's been, we've done it when we've had the opportunity. We have to take time out in order to, and allocate resources in order to pull these grants and this additional funding down in order to help rehab these houses. One of the big things in the report is a residential tax abatement program. There is a residential, there's also commercial commercial tax abatement programs that the county already has. There's only one municipality in the county currently that has a residential tax abatement program, and that's Columbus, as far as I know. The county can't do it as a whole. Municipalities have to do it, and we'd have to do it in a strategic fashion. But I think the county can work as a leader in this and work with the municipalities and help them both enact this, support it, figure out a way to make it work. And basically how a residential tax abatement program works is if you have a property and you're going to put an addition on it, you're going to rehab it, you're going to develop it, this would give you a period of time where you would pay no additional tax on the work that you would do on your property. Most programs, one of the biggest programs is in suburban Philadelphia. It's one of the reasons they've had a huge expansion and people buying up housing stock and redeveloping it is because they have a 10-year tax abatement program where you pay no tax for 10 years. Theirs is the biggest. Erie has one where it's graduated over 10 years, and I think you start out paying $0 and then you work your way up to paying the full price at the end of 10 years. I think that in our case, we've got to have a conversation about a residential tax abatement program because we've got to fix these houses up. We've got to incentivize people to fix them up. You know, and it's a challenge because municipal governments are always looking for funds in order to fund their projects, and I understand that. But this is one of those things where we've got to pull every tool out of the toolbox that we possibly can. And this is one that would be pretty bold, but doable. Bradford has a residential LERTA program. We've had conversations with the folks in Bradford. They've had some very good success with it. They just started it recently, I believe. Erie's also had a lot of success with it. And this is just another tool to incentivize people to work on their properties and develop them. And there's bank loans and a number of other things. The rest of them are much shorter, so I'll be done in like 2 minutes. Commercial property, one of the big things in the commercial property section was related to having a property inventory. One of the things that we don't have, and I've heard that we had one years ago, we do not have one now, which is a list of all of the available commercial properties or soon to be available commercial properties and what status they're in currently. So, for instance, if the commissioners go to an outside business and try to pitch having them come to Warren County in order to take up residence and expand their business, we would have to, on a dime, research properties, figure out ways to do site selection and other things. We have no menu, and believe me, we have plenty of properties that they could choose from, and what status they're in and how we can help them redevelop those properties. So this I think is a big one of the bunch on that. This also has to do with promoting there's another item in there related to promoting the LERTA programs we already have. We got to let the businesses know that we have tax abatement programs for them so that they can redevelop. Public housing was a big one, and we included that because with the declining housing stock, you have a lot of issues with slumlords and people who own properties and just let them go into decline, and then a bunch of other things. So public housing was a big one. One of the big items that came out of that was a discussion related to having a comprehensive needs assessment in the county. What you see a lot in Warren County are speculators coming in and pitching projects in order to use the tax incentives and a number of other things, but they're not really based on the actual needs of the community. And you have municipalities and the county so desperate for development that they'll take any development that comes in. It doesn't necessarily mean we need it, or it's the kind of thing we need. All you have to do is walk along the river next to Hickory Street to know what I'm talking about. So, we need a needs assessment so that when we attack these problems, we're actually addressing real needs within the community instead of kind of just doing stuff because there's money available. Code enforcement, zoning, and permitting was one that was kind of tacked on to this report, but it ended up being incredibly informative. A lot of the reason that it was put on was because we've had a lot of conversations with municipalities that have had a challenge enforcing the Uniform Construction Code, which was passed by the state some 16, 20 years ago now, I don't know, and then it's been updated once or twice in that time. It's not uniform, despite the title. Everybody kind of seems to handle it differently, and so that really is a challenge with development, is making sure that that's a uniform system. So we had a couple of the big things that we had were related to that. We're trying to recruit new code enforcement officers. One of the things I was really proud of as a part of this process was the code enforcement department for the city, as a part of this conversation, went and started talking to the Career Center and the Northern Pennsylvania Regional College about getting tracks through their system in order to get more certified inspectors. And I think that's a huge benefit of this kind of work, is just bringing people together in order to build those relationships. Another item on that was just a Warren Builds website, which would be a collection of all of the zoning, permitting, code-related information in the county, municipality by municipality in one place. So if you're trying to work on your house or trying to build a building, you can look on that site and get all the information that you need in order to understand what you need to do. One of the things that we identified as a need was the fact that there's information on all these different websites. Nobody really knows which one's accurate, and then some of the municipalities even have a hard time keeping track of it themselves. So that should be a big help. So with that, again, as the same with the marketing task force, I've authored a resolution kind of just affirming the findings of the report and just to reauthorize the task force to continue working to kind of roll out some of these projects. I think many of them are going to be incorporated into our comprehensive plan, which this is another reason to thank all the people that were involved in it, because it's going to end up saving the county thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in consultant fees that we would have had to pay to get this information and put it into a comprehensive plan. So this is another situation where the communities come together in order to save tax dollars, and I think that's a really wonderful thing. So does anybody have any questions before we...
Mr. Davidson, Lake Township uses the city's permit enforcement, building code enforcement. Are you saying that eventually your plan is to have the county take over the municipalities within the county rather than the ones that use the city for enforcing the construction code?
I think that the report basically recommends that whatever resources we have locally should be expanded. It doesn't specifically state whether it should be the county or the city. And a lot of that has to do with, we're, again, having conversations with the city about a lot of the stuff they're doing. I think that it's a very good collaboration. So, I mean, anything could happen. I don't want to say one thing or another related to that because I don't know that we could find that. All I know is we're paying outside agencies to do something that we should be able to do ourselves and do in a fairer and more even way. So that's the recommendation of the report, is basically to figure out a way to make that work.
But the individual municipalities, and again, I'll say Blake, which I'm a supervisor, we deal with the city on their permits.
Yep.
For permits, we have to have the building. My one suggestion to you is, I can give you an incident that a person added on to their residence, and 5 years later, the assessment came to evaluate any more taxes to his property. It took them 5 years. Possibly your assessment office needs more people, because 5 years is a nice time to get a little tax cut. His taxes didn't go up that much. But that's a shame that he added on to his residence, and it took him 5 years to come and assess his property. Can you explain that to me?
Well, without looking at the details of it, I mean, it's very possible that your municipality didn't get us the permit in time.
No, the permits were done properly.
I'm just messing with you, Joe. I'm just messing with you. No, I mean, I can't say on that particular case. Like, I know that there's an issue with us getting permits, and as a result, people getting their properties reassessed. Like, and that's another thing, depending upon when the secretaries change and some of the other things that can affect how we get permits. So having a county-wide program, or having the county be more involved in the program, I think is important to keep the rolls up to date. So I agree with you on that. As far as that particular case, I have no idea. I have to research it. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I would just say I'm impressed with all the research that was done and the wide variety of disciplines that you brought to the table. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, I mean, everybody drafted parts of the report, and they did a really fabulous job. I was really impressed with this group because they did the least amount of talking and the most amount of work. It was really impressive. They were, I'm really excited to work with them going forward. I think that you're going to see an enormous amount of collaboration between the city and the county and all of the municipalities as a result of this effort. So, anyone else? All right, great. Thank you very much for listening to my spiel. I tried to keep it as brief as I could.
While it's fresh in our minds, I'd like to adjust the agenda slightly to accommodate for voting on this resolution 3122, accepting the redevelopment task force at this time. I make a motion to
adopt a resolution 3122, accepting the redevelopment task force report and reauthorizing the committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is made and seconded to adopt Resolution 3122. Any comments from the commissioners? Any public comment? Thank you very much to everybody that was on the committee that made this thing happen. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. In order to facilitate Mr. Hearn's schedule, would you like to discuss PCHIP right now?
Yeah, you just have the resolution in front of you for 3121. This is the resolution for you folks to authorize the county to join PCHIP, which we discussed previously. So I just need we're all set to proceed with them. All we need is your authorization of this resolution, and any authorize me or others here in the county to effectuate the remaining documents outside of the resolution.
Okay, do you hear that motion?
I'll make that motion to
I'll
approve
second.
Resolution 3121.
I'll second.
And this resolution includes the authority for the fiscal director to effectuate the agreement, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Public comment? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Resolution 3121 passes. At this time, the remaining agenda items pertain to the ABM agreement. In order to have the technology, we're going to recess down to the Commissioners' Conference Room. We will pick back up at 1 p.m. Verizon time. What? Oh. I thought you said the meds.
Yeah, I think it's that. Yep.
Did that one move at all?
This
think
one,
it does.
yeah,
It
goes
goes-
down.
Public safety.
The United Property Council World, located at 1 East Main Street. It was formerly known as Young's, I don't know, some sort of a retail shop. I think they traded all different kinds of businesses throughout the years. The brick facade is falling off. It's in pretty bad shape. It's a little bit of a danger to the public. And Young's World has requested funds from our blighted property program to demolish the structure. So I'm working on it. I'm working on checking out the environmental considerations that would be with this project. They have a rough estimate of $60,000 to demo this building, and that's without any asbestos findings. And the county can allocate 30% of our fiscal year's contract to a project that's a
Well, I was all like, I was apprehensive about the whole thing until I drove through Ridgeway and they had a crush in a Santa Claus in the front of the courthouse. I was like, well, why don't we just do a Christmas thing?
We did take away a project from Youngsville Borough, $96,000 house.
You did. You were here. It was good to see you.
cut my lunch short so I could go.
I stopped eating for a moment.
Continue to commit to this project, the Youngsville Borough, before I start doing the budget modification and all the environmental review things that need to go along with it. I was very willing to make up any difference or any shortfalls. They've agreed to have an asbestos inspector come in and go through the building, pending finding out if it's safe enough to go through, to assess that situation prior to construction, which should save some money in construction.
We're good. I'm in favor of it and moving forward with the budget modification for this, which we will then vote on later, right? Or no?
We don't have that yet. I'm just asking for a commitment.
No, not today. I just meant like in the future, sometime we'll be voting on the budget reallocation.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes, I'm in favor.
Yes.
You too? Okay, thank you. Now, without further ado, Tyler Nichols from ABM joins us now for like the 5th meeting, I think, in order to take CSGO and more. I'll turn it over to you to give the presentation that you did on Monday.
Yeah.
To catch us up to speed. And then, so the commissioners have all independently met with ABM at this point and conveyed our desires for a facilities upgrade project. I don't believe there's a consensus on the board, so why don't you lay out not only the concept and your findings, but also the models.
Sure. Yes, so appreciate the opportunity to be here again. I'll do a quick concept review, as you indicated, just so we can kind of refresh everybody on the program, how it works. Share the results of our capital volatility analysis, which was something that we promised to the county at the very start of this whole program when you first selected ABM. Review some of the funding strategy, and then talk about potential implementation, to your point, Ben. Again, briefly, because I know this has been shared in public meetings before, these kind of programs are really Pennsylvania state response to really a lot of the challenges you see represented up there graphically on the screen. So for the better part of the last 10 years or so, really even before that, local governments, counties in particular, have struggled to increase revenues in any sort of a significant way, while at the same time the demands on your resources, expenses have gone up really pretty dramatically. These are things like unfunded pension obligations, unfunded state mandates, healthcare costs. You're being asked to do more with less every year. And so Pennsylvania created legislation that says if an accredited energy services company like ABM identifies ways to save you money and is willing to contractually guarantee those savings to you, you can borrow against the savings rather than against the taxpayer, as a way to offset the cost of addressing, in most cases, long-deferred capital and maintenance needs. So the capital volatility analysis that ABM does really is done for a handful of reasons. One is to present an accurate inventory of assets to the county, help you understand all of the different systems that you have in all your buildings throughout the county. Provide a condition assessment so that you understand kind of the working operations of those assets. And then the last two are the most important. Really help you understand your risk exposure moving forward. Basically what that means is what kind of capital investment is going to be required, particularly over the next 15 years, in order to keep those systems running. And ultimately, we have seen that has a pretty dramatic impact on the solution that clients decide to put in place, because they have a lot better idea of what needs are coming at them. Any questions on any of that? So I'm going to hand it over briefly to Pete. Pete has been here a lot on site here. 3 or 4 months. He's been your primary point of contact on site, developing this and assessing the different needs throughout the county. I don't know why that's not popping up on the screen.
Just going to quickly show some pictures as to what we found.
We believe a picture is worth 1,000 words, right. So we'll share some of the conditions that we found.
And we'll try to go quickly on this. So part of what we were asked to do from the get-go was to assess the needs of the courthouse in terms of restoration. It may not be self-evident or evident from the street level, but in these close-up photos you can see how bad things are getting. You've got rotting woodwork there, you've got corroded metal architectural pieces, and if these are not addressed at some point in the near future, it could lead to further problems down the road. They're not just decorative elements, they are in fact part of the building envelope. And so once these start to go, it becomes more expensive in the future to fix them if they're not dealt with now. This photo is hard to see, but the pointing or the mortar between the bricks is starting to fail. Once that happens, water and ice get into those spaces, and they freeze and thaw, and they'll start to actually break the brick down and cause further water damage inside the building because the water can now get in. It's hard to see, but upper middle, the downspout is actually disconnected, and you'll see in the next couple of slides what that means. When you have a heavy rain event, the water tends to pool around the base of the building, and if you go into the basement of the courthouse now, you'll see where this is already coming through the walls there and causing damage to the interior finishes, possibly toxic mold as well. Go ahead, Tom. That's just more of the same. That's underneath that downspout. This, is partly cosmetic, but it's also right outside this window here, when the roof material that's on top of that concrete plaza deck starts to fail, you're going to now get water into your machinery room. The boiler room for the entire courthouse is below there, and now you've got water impingement on very expensive machinery as well.
Boilers that the county actually replaced just earlier this year.
Yes, they spent quite a bit on that. This is an example of where the water is starting to cause problems with not only the steps, but the beautiful historic courthouse doors there. At the bottom, you can see the deterioration of the doors, and it would be a shame to lose those elements. They're part of the historic property. That's just another view of the same thing. This may not mean a lot looking at it, but you can see the discolored portions of that edge of the roof there, which serves as a gutter. And then in the extreme upper right of the photo, you can see a scupper, which is meant to drain the water to a lower level. What's happening here is not only the roofing itself is failing at the joints, but also underneath there it's starting to become deteriorated in a way that causes the water to pond in these areas. And when you have ponding water, again, it freezes, it'll crack things, if it's sitting there, it'll cause it to get inside the building, which it is in fact already doing. This roof has failed, and it's starting to cause issues on the interior of the beautiful historic courtroom. This is a view of the 1925 section of the courthouse. That's the oldest of the additions. Again, the roof has failed, and it's starting to allow water to get into the building and cause problems on the interior. That's just another view of the same thing. By the way, some of these penetrations that you see, meaning equipment that's on the roof or ventilators, some of that's not even used anymore and needs to be cleared up, because any kind of a penetration, whether it's intentional or unintentional, is a potential source of failure. This is some of the interior ceiling tiles that are in front of the historic courtroom. They've taken on quite a bit of water, and they're now starting to fail. That's actually in the historic courtroom that we were just in moments ago. It's a crack, and there is other areas on the interior of the courthouse where the interior finishes are starting to fail due to moisture. This, by the way, is an area where the county spent quite a bit of money some years ago to restore that courthouse, and now you may start to see these problems creep in. It's hard to tell, but there's a dark line there. That's a better photo. That's actually a bladder system that was installed as a stopgap measure. This is to collect water that's coming through the failed roofing and make an attempt to drain it out of the building. Not an ideal situation. It's a Band-Aid, really, just to keep things from getting worse. The real solution is to address the problems with the roof above that. This is an example of some of the HVAC that's failed. This particular unit and several others like it serve the jail, and the community may not have a good sense for this, but the law requires that you maintain certain comfort standards in prisons, because the inmates have no choice. They are there, they have to stay there, and if you have a heating failure or a cooling failure, you're now talking about moving that prison population. And if the HVAC fails unexpectedly, you could be moving the prisoners when you really don't have any place else to put them. It could become a huge issue rather quickly. That's just another unit. This is down in the boiler room of the jail, where there's a couple of valves that are not doing well. One of them in particular is leaking in a way where the superintendent of maintenance over there has had to take measures into his own hands to drain the water out of the room where the valve has failed. And this is out at the 911 center, the Rouse Center. This is basically residential quality HVAC equipment that was put in a number of years ago. It's now failing. It's beyond the end of its useful life and needs to be addressed so that the people in the building can have appropriate comfort standards. And this is at the Hickory office annex, or MDJ. It's a rooftop unit. It's difficult to kind of tell from this photo, but the coil on the end of that there is starting to get mechanical failure on it, where it's not going to cool properly anymore. It's not going to have airflow through that unit to do its job. I think there's also another picture of the roof. This is the Rouse Center, the side that's away from the parking lot, so it's not seen a lot. You can go through these real quick. But the exterior here is starting to fail as well. This is a door. Interestingly, this door is blocked off. It's not used for pedestrian purposes anymore, but that's almost, in my opinion, a worse situation, because now you have water coming into the building behind a wall that they've built on the back side of this door, and it's an unseen problem where you're getting water inside the problem. It's not self-evident that that's happening. Go ahead. It's just another view of the same exterior failure there, and that piece is completely gone. This is both an energy problem. This again at the 911 center. It's both an energy problem, but also a envelope problem where you have door seals that are failed or non-existent. So you've got moisture coming in. Here's evidence of a door that's completely failed. Now we would have to replace this rather than just address it with a coat of paint or with some weather stripping.
By the way, the other door,
I'm sorry?
that door is obviously really bad, but the other door next to it,
Yes.
it used to be worse than that when we first came into office, and there was a groundhog that was coming into the 911 center.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, not only small bugs, but fairly large rodents can sneak in. So it's quite a problem. And, you know, if you're cold and you have to occupy the building, you do what you have to do to get by. So people have stuffed paper under the door just to keep the heat in the building when they can. Is that it? This is at the warehouse. Again, low occupancy, but potentially high issues here with both weather getting in to cause issues, but also an energy problem because that gap there is about 2 inches. So when they have heaters running in the building, it's near impossible to keep heat there. You're basically trying to heat the great outdoors. This is a window in the garage out of the 911 center, which is completely failed, and the roof is completely failed. You can see from the tarps they put on top of that. Again, they're trying to do what they can to stop the problem. And here is, again, back to the warehouse. There's actually things growing on top of the roof, which are, it's not intentional. It's not. Some people build green roofs, but this was not intentional. This is back to the Hickory Center, and we include this photo in the next one just to show that the county spent a lot of money fixing this roof a number of years ago, and the roof is fine, but now the neighbors' trees are causing a lot of debris to collect and clog the drains, and it's a fairly simple matter to address at this point, but if it's not addressed, you're back to where you were before, where you're going to have a premature failure of this roof. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, so again, we sort of operate under the old premise that a picture is worth 1,000 words. I hope that that's true. Sometimes if you're not up on the roof, taking a look at these mechanical systems or the roof or these different systems throughout the county, it can be hard to really appreciate the conditions. So I appreciate Pete's efforts and his technical expertise. I wanted to put some dollar figures to what you just saw. So in terms of what that means for the required capital investment moving forward, ABM's capital volatility analysis grades all of the county's mechanical, electrical, plumbing, roofing, building envelope, architectural, and paving throughout the county. So basically that's your HVAC, heating and air conditioning, obviously all of your electrical systems, things like switchgear where power is coming into the facilities. Plumbing is pretty self-explanatory as well as the rest. As you can see, basically what this does is it assesses the needs over the next 15 years, and then it breaks it into 5-year increments. 40% of the assets that are going to need replaced in the next 15 years throughout the county are graded A and B. A's are things that are essentially new quality, things like the roof that you invested in over at the Hickory Annex, or the boilers in this facility, both essentially brand new, tremendous amount of life left in those assets. The Bs are things that, if well maintained, can really last the county a long time. They need to be on the right preventative maintenance programs moving forward, but these are not assets that are of any grave concern or immediate need of attention. The Fs and the Ds are on the opposite side of the scale. So you can see there's about $4.3 million worth of D and F graded assets. I think it's important to note that these grades are based on Pete's assessment and some other engineers within ABM, but also external third-party experts. So when we grade the roofs, we bring roofing contractors in that do this all over the place to provide their assessment. And the grades have all been agreed to by the county's internal facility people. So both here at the courthouse and over at the jail, the facilities individuals have seen and agreed to these grades. Fs are already failed. They don't work the way that they were intended to work. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's a roof that's leaking or an HVAC unit that's not running. Ds are units where failure is essentially imminent. And then the Cs are, these things have been degraded. They are towards the end of their useful life. There may be a scenario where you could repair rather than replace. But the point that we would make to you when evaluating these is that things degrade much faster at the end of their useful life than at the beginning. So the failures in the last 5 years of life are much greater, right? That they don't decline linearly. Does that make sense when I say that they don't age linearly? So the real point that I would make to you is this. If you add those up, this does not include, Jeff, I think you made this comment on Monday. There's a lot of things that's not included in this number. You're exactly correct, right? Things like furniture, not included in this number. Lighting, not included in this number because you could run those systems for as long as you want. They're not going to require you to replace them unless you choose to. The systems that will fail in the next 15 years represent a value of about $11.2 million in the next 15 years. The more concerning number is that if you look at where they're going to come to the end of useful life, the failure over the next 5 years is going to be about $6.5 million. Any questions on that? Potential funding sources for addressing this. Obviously, going back to the whole concept of the program, energy savings come along with addressing a lot of these needs. Addressing old and inefficient HVAC equipment, for example, will generate energy savings for you. Maintenance savings is a really big funding source. When you look at the repair spend in the county, it has been going up steadily. That's because a lot of your assets are aging. If you replace those old assets that are beyond useful life, your repair spend goes down. Operational savings, we identified some interesting things. We worked with Eric to get a new electric contract put in place that locked in a lower electric rate for the county. It's going to save you money moving forward on your electric rate. And operational savings, things like consolidating some printers. We worked with the IT department to identify that it was possible to consolidate some of those, and that would actually be a significant savings as well. The last is really a capital cost avoidance. So according to the assessment, that 6.5 is money that you are going to have to spend over the next 5 years upgrading these facilities. If you spend it now, proactively, on the county's terms, economies of scale work in your favor, and planning works in your favor. If you do these things on an emergency basis, as units fail, you pay a premium for that sort of work. The easiest example is HVAC units on this building. If you do them all at once, it's much cheaper than if you mobilize a crew and a crane and a new unit every time, right? Is that any questions on that? So I want to present what I believe to be two scopes that I think, to Ben's point, I'm not sure that there is a consensus across the board in terms of the program, but two programs that I believe have support. The one is what we're calling a comprehensive scope of work. We worked really diligently to not try to put anything in front of you that we wouldn't recommend. This is not the full $11 million or even the full 6.5. But items that we think would address the vast majority of the needs, especially over the next 5 years and moving forward. This would be comprehensive countywide HVAC replacements, the courthouse, jail, Hickory Street, E911, and the warehouse. It would be the comprehensive restoration of the courthouse. All of the roofing needs, including the slate roof, would be addressed. Gutters would be repaired, downspouts replaced, brick repointing and masonry repairs, including the south steps. Woodwork and whitework, which are some of the pictures that we showed you right off the bat, and then the restoration of the roof out here over the boiler room. This would include the replacement of the jail cell doors, which I understand is something that has been needed for some time, as well as the elevators in the jail and the courthouse, which I know has been a subject of discussion for a long time now. It would be a comprehensive restoration of the Rouse facility, the E911 facility, architectural, woodwork, painting, and masonry. It includes the relocation of a wall at the Hickory Street, which would really be done for improved security, primarily for the judge, but also for the tenants as well. Jail kitchen ventilation upgrades would be completed as part of this program, as well as improved record storage. The county is using a lot of different odd spaces throughout the courthouse's record storage. If you go in there, it's a lot of files that are piled up, but not necessarily organized well. There's not necessarily shelving in there that allows you to do that efficiently, and we would improve that for you. It includes a comprehensive building automation system replacement in the jail and the courthouse that would replace older Siemens and Johnson controls systems. Countywide HVAC cold plasma ionization is an efficiency measure. It allows you to minimize your outside air intake, which would drastically reduce the energy required to heat and cool the spaces, as well as the repair of steam traps throughout this building, which again is a major energy savings. The rest of these are really energy improvement items more than anything else. An LED lighting retrofit, replacing old T8 and T12 lighting throughout the county would have great payback for you. It would more than pay for itself. It would actually fund some other improvements. As well as the building envelope, water conservation, particularly over at the jail, is a great opportunity to stop waste in the water spend over at the jail. And the countywide plug load control is making sure that phantom power isn't racking up your electric bill when things are not being used. Any questions? The second option that we understand is on the table here today would be a slightly reduced scope of work. You can see the associated number there. The big difference between the program that I just presented as comprehensive and this program here is this would not include that new building automation system. It would include the integration of your existing Siemens and Johnson control systems into the new rooftop units, but it would not give you a new automation system here at the jail or the courthouse. It removes the slate roof repair and replacement on the courthouse. The woodwork and the whitework would not be part of this program. So again, the first couple pictures that we showed you, that would not be restored and that would not be repainted. Masonry repair would not be included, so we talked about the brick repointing and the grout needing to be redone. That is a source of infiltration in the building right now for moisture. That would not be included in this scope. The south steps would not be repaired, and the roof at the warehouse has been taken out. Any questions on it?
Oh, warehouse.
So those are the two programs that I understood you wanted presented for discussion here today. If I can answer any other questions, I'm happy to do it.
You don't recommend fixing the garage at the 911 center, correct?
So the E911 center, and Pete can jump in because he knows this better than I do if he wants, but if you look at the condition of the garage at the E911 center and the level of investment that would be required to not only repair that window and replace the roof, but because the roof has been failed for so long, structurally, the integrity of the building is really in question. The amount of investment that we would require, you're actually further ahead in our recommendation starting over again with maybe like a pole barn sort of a setup. Right. Because you don't require heating and air conditioning over there and it's really a garage for machinery. Right. We don't want to recommend you spend money on something you shouldn't spend money on. So our recommendation would be go a different route on that.
And both of these models assume the routes would be the Rouse estate would be kicking in for that property that we own through them, correct?
Yeah, so these are both total numbers in terms of funding.
Oh, okay.
So this does not, there's no additional cost on top of either of these numbers. Our understanding, and of course this is up to the county to work out with the Rouse, our understanding is that the county would ask the Rouse, and we presented at the county's request to the Rouse board. It seemed like there was a lot of, they liked the idea, they were willing to contribute. They would contribute the cost that would be associated with the repairs over there, which is about $282,000.
Right. Pete, how concerned are you at this point as an engineer about the integrity of the walls and as a consequence of the roof leaking into them and the grouting or pointing needing to be done? How many years do you think we have on that before it causes so much more damage that we're in the same situation as the Rouse garage, for instance?
Well, honestly, I think it's a ticking time bomb, because as soon as you get to the point where you have mortar cracking that way, especially every winter when you've got freezing, thawing, it's going to get a whole lot worse. And now you're talking about increased cost to potentially replace brick as well. In fact, there are some areas, and they're included in that masonry number, where we are going to actually chisel bricks out and put new brick in. And the company that we're working with has a source of historic brick that matches to the courthouse needs here. So that's good. I mean, it's like a lot of things. It's hard to predict failure in time because it's just a risk factor. Is it going to fail next year? I can't say that, but it's failing now, and it can only get worse. In my mind, that means that the longer you wait to address it, the more expensive it's going to become, if that makes sense. So, and that's not just ABM. This is experienced restoration contractors that do work on historic properties of this nature all of the time. I mean, for the record, if you need to know, we've been working with Northwest Restoration that did the work on the building outside the windows here. They did the work on the historic society building. So great. And they've done a lot of other work around town. So.
Okay, great. Any questions for ABM?
How many counties, other counties in Pennsylvania have you contracted with?
Richard can.
Columbia County and Wyoming County.
How many school districts within the state of Pennsylvania, or other entities within the state?
Probably about 5 school districts and about 4 municipalities.
Have you approached the Warren County School District?
Warren County. We actually met with the superintendent at the Pennsylvania School Board Association show in October and expressed that she expressed interest in sitting down with us and talking about what they're looking to accomplish.
Nationwide, we've done obviously a lot more than that. This is just one small region for us. Right now, for example, we're working on El Paso school system, which is 150 schools. It's one of the largest school systems in the nation, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, we're a global company. We handle the entire country, but your question is specific to Pennsylvania.
The legislation authorizing the state of Pennsylvania is mimicked. Each state has their own specific characteristics of their legislation, but these programs are implemented across the country. Yeah.
Most of your contracts in Pennsylvania you deal with school districts?
I would say the majority
the majority of it is public entities.
Yeah.
So school districts, counties, local governments, municipalities.
Very good. Any other questions? Not, I have a few comments. The first thing is I wanted to thank you for doing the inventory asset, because we knew going into office that had not been done in 15 some years and was kind of an abysmal situation. In fact, we had talked about potentially hiring an appraiser in order to update that. I don't know how, but I suppose it was actually noted in our recent audits that needed to be done. So I appreciate you helping get us there. I'm also glad that you brought some of these pictures to light. I have been climbing up on the roof and stuff and have seen most of this damage. That said, most people don't seem to know that the damage is far more significant than what they can see from the road of our majestic courthouse, let alone all the other county facilities. Now we can't ignore it, and so I think it would behoove us to move forward. And we're not talking about wants here. We're not talking about cosmetic changes or any fluff. These are needs that are going to bite us. Either we need to deal with them now or we'll deal with them the harder way later. And you are the only way that I can see in order to fix the issues. Short of a major tax increase or finding a competitor to do it instead. We are so far behind, there is no way that the county can catch up without taking out a massive bond and getting us back into the situation that we're in. I'm not in favor of any cosmetic updates. For instance, any LEDs I don't think should be, colored or anything spectacular. But I do recognize that things that may be lumped under a cosmetic heading, e.g. paint on the paintless windows and so forth, or maybe also serving a cosmetic function. However, primarily my interest in them is the fact that, for instance, the third-story windows are rotting out. They're about to fall out. We can't continue to kick that can down the road under the label of cosmetic. I also think that it's cheaper to do it now for several reasons. First thing is that the economies of scale, if we go now, would allow us to get much cheaper bids. I also think that it's of value to have you all project manage because you've managed significant major projects. That's kind of your bailiwick, and there's no way that we could piecemeal that together. And I want to pay it for it once in a planned way rather than continuing to dump money into a contingency fund and a capital improvement fund that's underfunded. We have to prioritize every year based on emergencies. I mean, how much did we pay this past year in emergency capital needs?
A lot. I don't remember exact number.
100,000 maybe.
100,000 something? I mean,
100 or 150.
something else we can.
And we're talking, like, the bulk of that was probably HVAC systems failing this year that are the same age as the other stuff that you evaluated. So you better believe that next year, if it's not this year, it's next year. If it's not next year, it's the following. And we're paying for a crane every time to come in and lift those things. We're paying for engineers to come in and evaluate them every single time, re-engineer and re-engineer. And I'm tired of that. And I think that there's an urgency here due to the seasons that makes us want to vote on this immediately and get this moving before, for instance, an HVAC system goes down at the jail in June of 2019 and we're having to ship our inmates off to other counties or something and incur significant costs. I think there may have been an opportunity in the past to apply for grants to do some of this, but frankly the time has kind of come and gone for that. And furthermore, due to the significant discounts that we would be getting by doing this as one wholesale project, I think we had thrown around the number of 50 cents on the dollar before. At best, if we applied for some grants and kicked the can down the road another 2-3 years and said some Hail Marys, maybe you get a 50% grant and you have to match it, and then you're back right where you started if we just agreed to work with you from the get-go. So for those reasons, I'm in favor of the full $5.6 whatever million project because it would be probably a $10 million project if we don't deal with it now. Other commissioners?
Shouldn't we motion this before we discuss it?
No. You can feel free to ask any questions you want of ABM or state position.
So, first of all, I would like to thank Commissioner Kaplan for his efforts related to this. He's the one that's really followed up with ABM, and tried to continue to work with them as a part of this project. And I think it needs to be stressed that, like this, for instance, the scope that we talked about was 3.755, $3,755,117. Of that, $1.3 million is going to be energy savings. Like, that is not going to require additional tax dollars to be spent, and that's almost entirely due to us engaging in this project. Other than reviewing the information that's been presented and going to some meetings and having a handful of phone calls, that's the extent of involvement I've had, and that Commissioner Catherlin has continuously followed up with ABM since May. And I think that once you go through all the financial information related to this, regardless of which package that we select at the end of the day, it's an enormous win for the taxpayers, generally speaking. They're going to save money that would have otherwise been spent in order to upgrade these over a period of time. It would be far more than what we're going to end up spending to get a wholesale upgrade in the county. And again, that's almost entirely due to the efforts of Commissioner Catherlin, who again has just really focused on this. So I have an enormous amount of gratitude to Commissioner Catherlin for his efforts here. So I wanted to just say that. And then secondly, I'd like to thank the ABM guys, for the folks at ABM, for all of their efforts related to this, because we've had a lot of different conversations about different stuff. There's been shifting focuses, and a lot of that has to do with the level of need. It's you're trying to pick the least challenging situation and trying to be economic about and judicious about what you pick. So a lot of things shift around and change. That said, with the $3.7 million base project that's being pitched, all of the major mechanical issues that we have are going to be addressed as a part of that. And then the bulk of what has been removed are the things that are related to, for instance, the feasibility study that was done this past year on the courthouse, and some of the projects related to that. As I've stated previously, I'm not in support of putting that into this project, just because I think that there's a lot more work that needs to be done on our part in reviewing that. And I think that there are a lot of options that we still have to mine, and I'd rather have a modest project where we end up in this case with what is roughly an additional $140,000 to the county on an annual basis, which I think that we can absorb relatively easily, considering with emergency expenditures we generally spend about $150,000 anyway. So with this project we get $140,000 annual payment. I think that's very easy for us to absorb. It's very fiscally responsible, and and then, as I said, all of the really major stuff gets taken care of in it. This includes all of the redlined items in your evaluation. It leaves out the yellow-lined items that are related to courthouse restoration. Someone who has spent a great deal of time studying this, analyzing and talking about it for over 2 years, totally understand the concerns related to the courthouse, and I appreciate the effort in trying to evaluate that. I still think that it's something that's going to be an ongoing effort on our part. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, well, you've heard from my 2 fellow commissioners, and I have a completely different viewpoint of the process. But I do want to thank ABM for the time that you've invested, and I appreciate your willingness to meet with me one-on-one to answer my concerns and questions.
Thank you.
With that said, so this really only makes sense if the numbers make sense. And I'm not confident that they do. On the premise that the county will realize a $1.4 million savings over the next 15 years, it would appear to me that we could save the taxpayers a lot of the remaining $4.3 million expense over time by doing this work ourselves and contracting through the bidding process to get the best rates. It appears to me that my fellow commissioners want to hire one single company to be the gatekeeper, basically giving up our control. Taxes were raised in 2017 to take care of major expenses like our roof and our jail elevator. I heard the phrase, "We can't keep kicking the can down the road on these projects," back in the end of 2016. And these are some of the reasons why taxes were raised in 2017. The roofs and the elevators are included in this project before us today. Taxes are going up another mill in our 2019 budget. To fund these projects at $500,000 a year for the next 15 years, the taxpayers should expect to see yet another tax increase in 2020. In my opinion, we're overloading the 2020 budget. An engineering firm was hired to perform a county facilities need assessment. The county taxpayers have already paid this engineering firm to do the same work as your free assessment by ADM. Nothing is free, and we all know that. And no disrespect, but you wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't money to be made at the end of the day. We have a maintenance director on staff, and we have a maintenance employee at the jail. And I realize that there are projects that will need to be quoted out, but our maintenance director is employed to solicit bids for the county, and we shouldn't need to be hiring an outside firm to do this work. Some of this work should be performed by our own maintenance staff at zero additional cost to the taxpayer. Some of these projects are necessary. I understand that. But not all today, not even this year, and maybe not even next year. I believe it would be wise to prioritize a capital needs list and tackle these projects one by one based upon the level of urgency. As of today, I am unaware of any strategic plan in place to address the needs based upon that concept. In my opinion, agreeing to this proposal with ADM adds an unnecessary layer of costs to the taxpayer and burdens the taxpayer with long-term debt that isn't necessary. This is too big of a price tag to hand over to our taxpayers. Sorry, gentlemen, that's just the way I see it.
Don't apologize for your opinion. The only thing I would say is the 1.4 million is, I've heard it thrown out a couple times. It's actually 2.4 million that's covered through the guaranteed savings. So it's well north of half of these costs. 2.4 million would be covered through the
We've only
guaranteed
seen
savings.
paperwork that supports the 1.4 though.
Agree to disagree on that?
The energy and operational.
Yeah. So the operational and repair and maintenance adds up to the 160 a year.
The issue we had earlier, which was like the sheet that I was working off of, just had the energy savings, and it didn't calculate for the maintenance and upkeep savings that go along with it.
Right. So the energy savings alone was the 1.
It's important to note that all of the savings that they're referring to are guaranteed through the contract. They have to produce those savings, otherwise they pay us for the difference.
Right.
So their evaluation of this is fairly thorough because they have to be thorough, otherwise they're going to lose money.
So again, with consideration for potential rounding error or something to that effect, essentially 2.4 million would be guaranteed savings to the county.
If we went with the full-blown version, we're really only paying extra, if you would, 3.3.
And then the next consideration being the rouse and whether or not they bite off the
right. So maybe that drops down more to 3. Closer.
Correct. I just want to make sure, again, to Jeff's point, I think there's a little confusion between energy savings and total guaranteed savings. There's more total guaranteed savings coming to you than...
Yeah. A couple of things. One is like the $150,000 that we spent this year was to replace, I think, 2 HVAC units and then like some kind of air conditioning, air handling unit. So hypothetically speaking, we could take $150,000, set it aside, and just start every year replacing those things. The problem is that as you have kind of outlined, there are items in there that are at the end of their life, and so within the next few years, it'll go from 150 to 200 to 300 to. So in this case, in a controlled setup, which Commissioner Kafferlin had discussed earlier, we can upgrade these, see the savings now, and then work against those savings going forward. So as a result, if we were to do this without the savings over time, the $140,000 that I'm talking about for this payment becomes $300,000 or $400,000 every single year, with none of the savings incorporated into it. So that's the kind of genius of this setup, is that we're going to do this at once, save money on our energy maintenance costs for 15 years, and then borrow against that in order to get the stuff done, which it needs to be done anyway. And as you stated, like especially with the HVAC units, when they break down, you're talking about moving people, so it's not just about the cost related to that. I have to disagree with my colleague, Commissioner Morrison. 2017 the tax increase had, in my mind, almost nothing to do with maintenance-related items. It had to do with healthcare costs and the increase in our ARC payment, among other things. We've tried desperately over the past few years to address these maintenance issues and had conversations about them. I would welcome Commissioner Morrison to take the time to put together a capital asset list and maybe make a proposal to the commissioners for the replacement of these items. I think that would be well worth your time. Part of the reason that I'm proposing the difference in this case is that to avoid a future tax increase. I think that $140,000 is a very reasonable amount of money for us to spend, considering we're already spending that in emergency situations anyway. This is about as close as you're going to get to revenue neutral as you can get in this situation, and still have a massive upgrade in infrastructure in the county. A lot of work's gone into this, and so I appreciate that. I think it's recognized in the type of information that we've dealt with and reviewed over the course of it, and that's why I'm very comfortable with the concept of working with ABM, and they've done everything they can to be as transparent as possible, which I can't say about every vendor that we work with. Certainly they stand to make money in this project, but for them, it's clear that they've kind of set a standard where they want to help the people that they're working for, and they want them to feel good about the purchase after they're done. So I would add that as well. Thank you.
I'd like to counter what Commissioner Eggleston has said, in that when we raised taxes in 2017, one of the main issues that we looked at was the replacement of the roof, the jail, elevator, and several other major capital needs. And I think that Mr. Cotton would agree and remember that Commissioner Kafferlin provided a tour of the roof and the problems that were as a result of the bladder system up there. And there was pictures all over the newspaper to basically defend the reason for the raise in tax. Also, the capital list. Ever since we came into office, 2016, Commissioner Kafferlin had proposed that he would work on the capital items list, and he was to work with our fiscal director at the time to devise that list. When it came time for budget negotiations, we were always promised that list that was never delivered. So at this point, we still don't have, or nor have I seen from Commissioner Kafferlin, a capital list prioritizing our needs.
ABM has provided that list.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that we need to do that ourselves. It takes the control out of our hands.
My strategy all along has been to get us out from under the financial burden of managing it ourselves. We are not engineers. I am not an engineer. I am not qualified to go up on the roof and look at the HVAC system and say it needs to be replaced. That's why we brought in ABM among others.
Why did we hire an engineering firm?
Okay, so as a positive comment that I would like to make, or just to share my perspective on the Office of Commissioner. I, at this point, never wait for Commissioner Cafferlin or Commissioner Morrison to do something. If I have a major concern about something in the county, I take the time to look at it myself and to evaluate it myself and to put some kind of recommendation together myself. My recommendation, again, to Commissioner Morrison is rather than waiting for the other commissioners to do what is a concern of hers, to actually do that work and then present some kind of proposal to the commissioners, just generally speaking. The reason that a feasibility study was done, which was paid for with Act 13 funds, which is not general fund tax dollars, was because I had recognized the issues within the courthouse, both on the roof and the exterior, wanted to address them. The reason ABM, what they essentially did was take that feasibility study and then incorporate it into what they were doing, along with their own personal evaluations based on their experience. And that's why there is the proposal that you see with the $6 million, is because they were trying to incorporate that. That was as a part of the general request, because we thought this was one way of trying to address this. If I thought that it was financially feasible to do it that way, believe me, I would support it 110%. Personally, I think that there's a bit more of a cautious angle to take on this from my perspective. That's why I recommend the 3.7 rather than doing the 6. They are not going to lose any sleep if they don't, if we don't do the full 6. They recommend that it be done. They have very good recommendations, but a lot of the reason that's in there is because we specifically asked them to look at it, because we had done all the work with the feasibility study and some of the other stuff. The feasibility study is still a tool to be used going forward to address this on our own. We haven't had to pay ABM to do any of their additional evaluations as a part of this. So frankly, it's a bonus that they have taken a second look at it and made recommendations related to it. Those recommendations can also be shared with future architects, engineering firms, and contractors that we would work with in order to address those needs.
I would just like to say that maybe Commissioner Eggleston will remember a conversation that he's had with me and several other employees of the county, that basically he's told me that you will never accomplish anything in this term, and I'll see to it that that never happens. And that those employees in the county that hitch their wagon to the Cindy train are going down. So far be it from me to come up with a capital list that I feel would hold any merit with the two of you. You have shut me down time and again. I would not waste my time preparing something for you that I know would never be considered.
Despite the
That's all I
fact
have
that
to
that's
say.
our job, regardless of whether, I'm making this proposal and I'm pretty confident you're not going to vote for it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do the work. Either way, that's a side point. We do not have time to deal with that because there's a meeting in here at 2 o'clock and we're 2 minutes up. So I would move, Mr. Hearn.
I was just going to say, I've only been, obviously not with the county for a few months. However, this is not, no offense guys, a glorious topic. It's not, people don't love these big topics out there in the public, but being a former elected official and where I come from, I've seen it, people not want to deal with stuff, and it always ends up costing more in the future. I would just say that. And from the financial side, having just similar, like we just decided on the insurance P-chip program, having the ability to smooth out some of our costs in the future, regardless of what you folks decide. I think from my perspective, that's, having that for budgetary purposes going forward is much better than crossing our fingers every 12 months, waiting to see what happens, what breaks down. That's all I just wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. A quick response, because I didn't get a chance earlier. Yes, we would be hiring ABM as a gatekeeper, but they are hiring local firms when possible. And I don't want to belabor the point, but going with this is cheaper over the short term and the long term, because it's been shown that we are not really able to project manage capital projects in such a way as to get them all done, especially a scale of this magnitude. And I think we're leaving money on the table if we reject the savings outright. With that, I would make a motion to approve Resolution 3119 and 3120, which is basically boilerplate template allowing the chief clerk with the chief clerk and solicitor to review the agreement that ABM would present, of course with the counsel and input of the fiscal director and the 3 commissioners. And attached to that motion, I would advocate for the $5.7 million spend, which would ultimately cost the county somewhere in the ballpark of 3.3 additional general fund dollars. Ballpark. Did I hear a second?
So just to be clear, what would be the annual payment for that for the county? Like as far as like what we would be borrowing?
Contribution?
Yeah, the contribution.
would be around $315.
How do you arrive at that?
Yes, so that's the total payment annual finance required, less the 160, roughly 160 in guaranteed savings, and that would also be contingent on the ROS contribution, which I know has not been voted on and finalized. But
So you're saying an energy savings of $160,000 each year?
yes, so that's guaranteed savings. So the energy savings is a very significant portion of that. So it would be the energy savings, the operational savings identified, and the maintenance savings identified, which would be realized by replacing equipment that's well beyond useful life and high repair needs with new equipment that won't require repair. But the guaranteed savings, to Jeff's point, which is really safe money, right, would be 60.
Do I hear a second to my motion? Hearing none, I would ask if there are any other motions on the floor.
I would entertain a friendly amendment that would state that with all the same stuff except with the $3.7 million project.
I don't know why I've left the screen. But
I assume I'm not going to get a second to that. So despite the fact that I think we're leaving money on the table and it's imprudent to do anything less than a 5.6, I will accept the friendly amendment. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Likewise.
Aye.
Commissioner Scaffellin and I listed in favor. Commissioner Morrison against. Motion carries. Personnel transaction reports. 3 hires. Lisa Burkhouse, effective the 19th of last month in tax assessment as administrative assistant at a rate of 1108. Michelle, I'm sorry, what?
Well, I think she's trying to write the number down.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Redauer, the Proprietary's office as a clerk of courts coordinator, also at 1108. Heidi Valella, effective also on the 3rd of December, in the Treasurer's office as a part-time temporary administrative assistant at 1108. There are no other hires or changes that I'm aware of to bring before this board. I would ask for motion to approve the personnel transaction report.
So moved.
Need a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
We have to have a reason for an abstention.
I don't agree with the hire and assessment.
That's the reason.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not aware of anything else to bring before the board at this time. Last comments?
I would just like to say that if Commissioner Morrison's comment is printed in the newspaper, I'd like an opportunity to respond to it. If it is not, then I have nothing else to add.
Very good. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Have a Merry Christmas.